through. The goal of this assignment is to help you guys develop library research skills. We had a class on that in the online content. This was the first set of material that you guys covered after our introductory meeting. And also it is to help you apply the skills of using APA style. There's also an online unit about that. So those two units are going to be directly relevant to this paper, and you should be using your notes and your readings and anything else that you did for those units to write this assignment. So first, I want you to pick a country in the world, and it can be absolutely any country you want, but pick a country whose culture you would like to research. And my only suggestion is try and pick a country that's fairly easy to research, that there's fairly easy to find information about. So if you pick a country like Bhutan, it might be harder to pick information than, let's say, Egypt. But it can be absolutely anything. And then we are going to pretend that you are doing this paper as a memo at work and that you are working for a school district in Philadelphia area. And this district is expecting a delegation of educators from the country you choose. And so you are going to write a memo about this country and the culture of this country to basically help the representatives from the Philadelphia district behave better and just communicate better with the guests. So, it's usually a good idea if you know you're going to meet people from a different country to kind of brush up on the culture and what's acceptable, what's unacceptable. Are there any gestures that are considered offensive in a particular country? So that's why we're going to pretend that you are compiling some information, some background information about that country, so that the representatives are going to, from our district, are going to be able to use it during the business meetings and just generally hanging out with our guests. So really, you don't have to worry about that scenario. You don't have to write anything about, hey, we're meeting with these people and so on. This is just kind of to give you a realistic setup for your paper. And the information that you want to compile for me is in here. First, I want you to include some basic facts about the country, like location, size, political system, population, currency, official languages. That should take you about half a page up to 1 page. Then I want you to go and find at least one current event that took place in this country recently. Now, what that means is news. You need to go and find news from the country. And news is only news when it's new. So you need to try and find something that happened very recently, like within the past week. If you pick a news story from several years ago, like the Olympics in China, that's not really news and that's not really a current event. So you will need to browse internet databases to find news information, and there are two good places to go. One is news.google.com, and you can just type the name of the country. For example, I don't know, if you're writing a paper about Libya, you could type Libya and see what information you find. Another place to go is LexisNexis. This database was discussed in our library research tutorial, and as you may remember, it has a very nice interface where you can search only news. You can pick the category of world news, and then you'll be able to pull up news from this country that you are researching. And if you do cover more than one event, then you can, devote a little bit less detail to each of the two events. Because one important thing is you don't have a lot of space for this paper. It's a very short paper. And then finally, I want you to cover from 3 to 5 different facts about the culture of the country. And the idea here is that, the fewer facts you report, the more in depth I want you to go on each facts. The best and the culture information, the best type of culture information would be one that will be helpful, directly helpful to our Philadelphia district representatives. So, things about etiquette. What kind of behavior is acceptable? What's unacceptable? How do you behave when you greet people? And you got to kind of think if it's going to be really informative or not. If you are reporting in Great Britain, UK pretty much has very similar rules for greeting people as we do. So try and find information that's kind of, different from the way we do things in American culture. Don't just pick things that are obvious, because that's also going to influence your grade. Or, something like, oh, in Ireland, people really like to go and hang out at public houses. Everybody knows that pretty much. So don't pick things like that, or things that might be sort of stereotypical. Try and find really useful, interesting information. For example, if you study Japan, there is one etiquette rule for exchanging business cards, where when you accept a business card from your Japanese partner, you should hold it with both hands and examine it, and then you put it away in your pocket or in your folder, and then you give your own. And so this is a really important thing, because if you don't behave the right way, that's going to potentially affect your relationship with that person. So also things like traditions. Nonverbal communication, for example, gestures that are considered offensive. Some gestures that we use in the United States, like the gesture for okay, where you make a circle with your thumb and forefinger, is considered very offensive in some countries in the Middle East. So these would be great examples of information that will be very helpful. But also, maybe approach toward work and leisure, views on leadership and what a leader should be, family orientation, attitudes toward United States, or anything related to communication among and with members of this culture. And once again, I will grade you on how useful that information is. So make sure that you pick good things, not just any things. And so here are some parameters of the paper. The due date is February 4th via D2L. And remember that there is a late penalty for the paper, so make sure you submit on time. You have to have a minimum of 3 different online or print sources cited for that paper. Now for this bit, you can pick anything, almost anything that is on the internet, any website, as long as it is credible. And remember, we had also a class within library research. We talked about evaluating internet sources. You did an activity where you evaluated websites for credibility, and hopefully you read my feedback on that, my automatic feedback. So you need to pick sources that are credible. So examples of sources that are not credible are Wikipedia. Another place that people very often go that's kind of questionable is Quintessential. You will probably come across this website when you look for research, and it's really an example of a kind of shady source. They say that they are a cultural consulting agency, but they don't identify who their experts are. They do not cite their sources. And so it's really unclear where their information is coming from and whether or not it's reliable. So a really credible set of sources might be things like government websites, embassy websites, university websites, major nonprofit organizations that are established and respected, newspapers, and print books. Print books, like guidebooks, tend to be fairly good sources of information. And we have a bunch of books in our library that are about the etiquette, business etiquette in different countries. If you type in library catalog a keyword like international business etiquette, or business etiquette, and then the name for your country, for example, business etiquette Poland, you might be able to find a really great book that will give you some of that information. And also go into books.google.com. That is a good place to locate some books, and Google allows you to preview some of the books that you find. So if you type the same keywords I just mentioned into books.google.com, you may be able to find information through Google preview of books, and there may be enough for you not to have to go and get that book actually. So on the style and citations, we are using APA style, and remember that there is an online handout or tutorial posted under the APA style unit that gives you all the examples of online sources or any kind of source you could be citing. Also, I discuss in the video lecture how to cite a website, so that will be very useful to you. Make sure that you follow exactly my directions that for using APA that I discuss in the lecture, and everything else you have read about it or seen on the online unit or in the textbook. This is very important because APA style, if you see here, is 30% of your grade. Make sure you do it right. Make sure you use the PowerPoint slides, the handout as your checklist, and you follow everything up to the last period, because I'm going to grade you even on simple things like periods, italics, and commas on APA. Okay? The length, and we're coming to the length, you only have 2 to 3 pages to write this paper, so it's going to be very brief, and you have to be able to pack a lot of information into a little space. And that means you cannot just write empty sentences just to fill in the space. Every single word has to be accounted for. Every single word has to be valuable with information. And if you look in this folder where this video is posted, I have also created a video about what a memo is, because this paper will be written not as an essay but as a memo. What you're looking at right now, these instructions, are written in the format of a memo. And I'm not going to go into detail on this because there is a separate video that I want you to watch in the same folder here on D2L. The font that you should be using is 12 point Times New Roman, and it should be double spaced, this paper, and there should be 1-inch margins. If you go on D2L, you will see that there is a sample applied research report paper where I blanked out the actual text, but you can see the format of the paper. And in the memo, you can use tables, so information like the basic facts of about the country is a great thing to put in a table, because they're sort of bits and pieces of information, and it's very easy to just put them in a table. And that's it, guys. There's really not much else to it. Remember that in a memo, I don't want you to have any long-winded introductions or conclusions, just the bare information like here. And also pay attention to what I will grade you on. These are my grading criteria. This is my rubric. The amount of information you provide, the quality and usefulness of information is worth quite a bit. Clarity of how you write, the grammar and style. APA is the most valuable thing here, and the quality of sources you cite is also a valuable thing here. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions, and the paper will be due this Friday on February 4th.